What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Fish the Moment. Back here with Jimmy for another bass fishing tip. And today we're going to be talking about a great technique to save yourself when you're fishing offshore in some tough conditions. To set this up, we were on Derrick's Lake here in southern Arkansas, and we were fishing in kind of a weird transition phase on Derrick's. The fish were not really fully off the bank yet, setting up in their summer schools, but there were enough fish offshore and there was a pile of bait offshore to the point where we knew that we could catch them offshore, but it was just a little bit tough. And kind of get into that, Jimmy, what was going on?
Yeah, it was during that tough transition. Like I said, the lakes are a little behind right now. And like I said, there's still fish kind of shallow. So some fish were starting to get deep. We wanted to go out there and really try to find a mega school. So I didn't tell Johnny any information about it. I wanted to see him do his magic. And he got in that boat, started idling around, picking areas, of course, that were some popular community holes, doing his graphing thing, getting the live scope going, found some schools, but they were not in the mode to eat. And we also then had this front come in, but luckily right 30, 40 minutes before that front hit us and we had to get off the water, Johnny had something figured out and we got some bites, and he caught a good one and lost a good one too.
For sure. The deal that was happening, guys, we had basically the pre-front conditions, but it was a calm before the storm.
Yeah.
Cloudy skies, no wind.
Uh-huh.
That's the toughest condition for offshore bass fishing, in my opinion. When it's sunny, they'll sit up around the brush piles, the cover, they'll get tight to stuff, kind of group up. When it's windy, that wind will get those fish to push tighter to the bottom. That current will kind of position them better. But when it's cloudy and no wind, those fish tend to roam more, and without the wind, they don't really position anywhere. So if you look at some of these sonar recordings we have here, you'll see there's bait everywhere on these areas, and these fish are just kind of randomly chasing fish, or these bait fish, out in the middle of the lake. And I've found in those conditions, especially early summer when those fish haven't fully set up in their schools, the best way to catch those fish is to pick up a moving bait. In this case, we're throwing a deep diving crankbait because it was some pretty stained water, 1 to 3 foot of visibility. And then if you're on a clear lake, let's say 3 to 5 feet of visibility, maybe I'd be throwing a swim bait or something, a hair jig, stuff like that. But because we were in that dirtier water, I was throwing the deep diving crankbait. And what I was trying to do is literally fish it as if you're fishing a square bill up shallow, but doing it offshore. And I was graphing up for areas where I would find bass and bait fish in the general area, but a good piece of cover for those fish to be on, whether that is a little rock pile, a brush pile, some standing timber by a channel. And we kind of were getting bit all over the place. And what I do in those conditions, because those fish are roaming, they're on the bait, is I'll just pull up on areas that have good cover with bait fish and bass kind of around the area and start banging this crankbait off of that cover like I was fishing it like a square bill, just casting it out, reeling it in. I'm not really seeing the fish on the live scope or on the sonar set up on a certain spot. I'm just fan casting this area, but trying to hit those key pieces of structure. And what's happening is that the crankbait will deflect off of the rocks, the trees, the brush, and create a reaction strike. And if there's any fish in that general area, they'll get right on it. And the one thing that, with the one fish I did catch, is that it was actually the end of a boat ramp. And right on the end of that boat ramp, there's a little extra pile of rocks down there, and it dropped off, and there was a couple fish setting up around it, but they weren't like stacked on it. And I bounced that crankbait, got 1 bite, and I only caught 1 fish. We had another spot that was some standing timber on the edge of a drop, again, a lot of shad there, and there was 1 tree that I bounced it off of, lost a fish, and we got 1 bite on each area. That's super typical in these conditions when it's cloudy, no wind. You're gonna get 1 bite per spot, and you just have to run and gun just like you're fishing up shallow.
Yes, and that's something too, like, I remember me and Johnny growing up, we used to catch fish doing this on a couple of our lakes back home. And we were doing this, but we didn't really know why. And now, through the years of fishing, we know why. And like I said, it always was a 1 fish deal. Like we talked about one of our old home lakes, like in early June, end of May, early June, we might go out there, couldn't get fish. The fish were in that stage where they weren't up shallow, weren't out deep in the brush, but we knew what the brush piles were and we knew what the drops were. But we go throw this crankbait all day and get 5 bites. And if we got them 5 in the boat, we were gonna have anywhere from 17 to 20 pounds. I mean, they were the quality bites that you were looking for, but it wasn't something that was gonna get a lot of bites, And that was something. Now, you can go up and down the bank with a shaky head worm, a finesse technique, and catch more fish, but you're gonna catch 12 to 14 inchers, where we were trying to catch the big fish. And it's something that you have confidence in. And like I said, I did too. Like I said, here lately this time of year, I've not been been able to fish some of these lakes because I might be at a Millwood where it's shallow, just different deal. When Johnny started talking about it, I was like, oh yeah, this is one of our ways we could catch them, you know. And so we had those bites real quick. He caught that one, and then we luckily, you know, we got ran out of there. But if we would have kept doing this, I think we were about to get a good couple bites in the next 3 hours, and we were going to be able to put a bag together.
For sure, that front came through, and honestly, if that front started coming through, maybe the wind picks up, those fish might set up better on those pieces of cover, and it may have not mattered. We could have then maybe found them grouped up. And that's the one thing about offshore fishing, guys, it's all about timing.
Yes.
And that's one thing I've learned so much over the years, especially with live scope. Live scope's been a game changer for me, understanding bass behavior, not so much just like looking at the fish catching them, but it's like understanding how the bass are moving in real time. And I've learned that when you have these tough conditions, the cloudy skies, no wind, those bass will just roam, and they are not going to set up on anything, and it's really tough to catch them offshore. Now, you could sometimes go up shallow and catch them, but at the same time, it's hard to go fish shallow and offshore, and we knew the offshore fish were going to be the consistently good quality. So in those conditions, picking up a moving bait, again, you can throw a 1 ounce swim bait on like a 1 ounce head, reel that thing, throw a flutter spoon, a hair jig if you're kind of, the fish are more roaming on like rocks and stuff. But if you're on brush or thicker cover, a crankbait is a great option. It kind of seems weird to throw a crankbait around brush piles and trees, but the crankbait I throw is the Striking 6XD. This thing has a very wide bill to it, and it'll deflect off cover super well. And I will literally just grind that thing through those brush piles, and it's something a lot of guys do, but it catches some absolute tanks.
It does. It does, and that's what he said not a lot of people do. I haven't done as much in a while since I've been down here. I've got so familiar with just throwing the worm, and it's a confidence deal or a jig. And you know, and he pulled that out and started doing it, and I was doing it too, and I even was telling him, hey, I haven't done this as much lately. You know, I love the crankbaits, y'all, on the ledges, the rocks, the deep points, structures like that. But I've kind of gone away from the brush pile deal, and I'm going to have to go back to it. You know, I've thrown the worm, I've thrown the jig, I've swam the jig at the brush piles, you know, since that's a new kind of thing. But I'm going to have to go back to the old reliable here, because it will catch big fish.
For sure, and the other thing with that is that the jig and the worm are great if the sun, like if it was like today, bluebird skies, sunny skies, I'm not throwing the crankbait. If it's calm and sunny, that's when the worm and the jig are gonna be good, because those fish will get tight to that cover, tight to the shade around that brush. You don't need to throw a crankbait. And the crankbait deal is a very situational bait for me. A lot of guys try to ask, you know, when to throw a crankbait. Crankbaits are best for me when it's windy, or when it's cloudy and calm. Those are the two conditions for deep diving crankbait for me. When it's cloudy and calm, you're not gonna catch a ton of fish on it, but you're gonna catch one fish here, one fish there, and they're gonna be good ones. When you're fishing in the windy conditions, they're gonna bite at sun or clouds, and they'll be grouped up. Now with this 6XD, the way I actually throw this around brush piles is I use a little bit heavier setup than I normally would with a standard 6XD crankbait. Normally I'm throwing out a 7'6" Denali Covert Light crankbait rod. And I'll put it down in the description below, guys, and a link to denalirods.com where you can actually get a 30% discount on your first order, 30% off on your first order rods. Definitely check that out. It's a great deal. And instead of throwing just a standard crankbait rod, like an all-around rod, I go to a little bit more specialized rod. This is the Lithium Pro Mag Crankbait 710 extra heavy crankbait rod. It has a moderate bend, so even though it's an extra heavy power, it has a moderate action. And so it's going to have a little bit of give for this crankbait. And I'm throwing this with 14-pound Sunline FC Sniper fluorocarbon, a little bit heavier line. The reason I'm doing this is because the 6XD will dive 18 feet on 10, 12-pound test, but it only dives about a foot, foot and a half shallower if you put it on 14. And that 14 is a little bit better on those brush piles. You won't break off as much. And with that stouter rod, you can get those fish hooked and pull them away from the brush. You don't want those fish to hook you and take you right back into that brush pile and lose them. You need to have a stouter rod to be able to lay into them and pull them out of that brush. Another deal with this is I switch out these stock treble hooks, and this is mandatory if you're gonna be fishing with this big rod. I throw Gamakatsu EWG size 2 treble hooks. They're a little bit bigger than the stock treble hooks, and they will keep them pinned so much better. And I was actually throwing a different brand of crankbait with round bend Gamakatsus, and I lost that fish.
Yeah, you said that right after you lost that fish. He tied that one on, and you know, and one thing about the rod, you said the brush. You know, I like to throw the crankbaits in trees. Okay, you know, like back at like Ouachita, Forks a place too, and then even up here, you know, where we're fishing trees, that's something I will throw it in, and that rod helps you get them out of them trees. Them fish are gonna get it, and they're gonna take you right back into them trees. I mean, they're trying to get you and go back home, so you gotta take them and get them toward the boat.
For sure, and this is, you know, a very specialized rod, but you can also throw a 10XD, you can throw bigger like glide baits on this rod, so this is definitely a rod that will do some damage on some big fish. If you're, you know, not really worried about catching big fish, then maybe just, you know, go back get a standard rod.
Yeah.
But if you want to go catch some giants, this rod here is worth the money in my opinion. I love it, and catches all the big fish. So that is the technique, Jimmy. Basically, the idea I wanted to get across with this video is pick up your moving baits, your crankbaits, in those cloudy conditions with no wind. Cover a bunch of water, fish a bunch of spots for 10-15 minutes. If you bounce that crankbait off the cover and you'll get bit after 5-10 casts, move on and just keep rotating areas, and you'll get 5 to 10 bites a day, but they'll be the right ones. If it gets sunny again or windy, you can go back to your other techniques and catch them, but this is a great way to kind of work through some of those tough conditions offshore in the summer.
Yep, that's right.
Good deal. Well, man, thanks again for taking me out on all your local lakes. Got to take the orange bass cat out. Got a little bit dirty. Jimmy is over here paranoid about the windscreen.
He knows I'm about to clean this thing right now. I mean, it's dirty, but anyway, we caught some fish. That's all that matters right now.
Yeah, we're like the opposites, guys. Jimmy's all those shallow water in the grass, and he cleans his boat. I don't clean my boat ever.
Yeah.
Never touch it with a sponge, and fishing offshore in the middle of the lake. Maybe it's because of that clear water. It doesn't get as messed up as I'm out there.
Yeah, that's what he laughed at me every time we got off the water at Millwood. I mean, I had my bucket and I was cleaning this at the ramp, and he's like, "Hey, I'm ready to go." I'm like, "Hey, wait a second, calm down.
Scrub this down every inch." He's getting right in here. You know, he's really getting it. So
that's right.
I hope you guys are enjoying the content with Jimmy. He's again our new video editor here at Fish the Moment and content creator. You're gonna be seeing more videos from Jimmy down here in Southern Arkansas. I'll be up north in northwest Arkansas, catching them up there. And if you guys enjoyed the content, make sure to leave a like down below. If we can get this video to 1,500 likes, it really helps us out with the YouTube algorithm. Also subscribe if you want to see more content from Jimmy and I here on Fish the Moment. Thanks again for checking out this video. We'll see you all next one.